morning, women's basketball fans. It's the Her Hoop Stats podcast. It is Monday, June 9th. As always, I will give you our rough time. We're around 10 o'clock Central. I always give the time because inevitably news is going to come out later in the day. And when we don't touch on it, I want to have that little bit of plausible deniability. So as you are probably used to for Mondays, it's Jamie Steyer Johnson. But folks, if you are watching on video, you've already noticed a different face here for the Her Hoop Stats podcast. Audio, get ready for a very exciting surprise here because I am joined by Cindy Brunson, who for many of you probably needs no introduction, but since everything is someone's first podcast, everything is someone's first sort of foray into women's basketball, I'll give her an opportunity to give a little summary of her history, because if we were going through the whole resume, that would just be the episode. So we'll get into that, I'm sure, over the course of the season. But Cindy, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, we're so excited to have you here.
Oh, Jamie, thanks so much for the warm welcome. I appreciate it. B-Mac working the controls behind the scenes. So great to be working with him again, the producer extraordinaire. Here's the situation. Aaron kept asking me to be a part of the system, and I was unable to due to time constraints. But now, thanks to a recent change in my job status with Phoenix Mercury, I got time. But what has not changed is my ultimate women's basketball fandom. So I am so excited to be a part of the Her Hoop Stats podcast party. And even though it's super early for me on the West Coast, I'm raring and ready to go, caffeinated and all that good stuff. Brief summary of Cindy Brunson, 13 years at ESPN, where I met my husband, Steve Berthiaume. He got his dream job with the Arizona Diamondbacks as television play-by-play. So we left ESPN. I moved west. That's when I got into television play-by-play myself, calling women's basketball for the Pac-12 network for a decade. And then have parlayed that into other opportunities like Athletes Unlimited, where I get to work alongside the Hall of Famer Cheryl Swoops, University of Arizona women's basketball, NBC Sports, doing Big Ten basketball, and TNT Sports most recently, getting to work alongside Adam Johnson and Christy Winter-Scott. So just a smorgasbord of women's basketball, something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of had your hands in a little bit of everything. And beyond that, you follow anything that you're not professionally covering, as we well know. You know, if people are out there following you on, Twitter, stuff like that, you've always got, every game you're going to have a takeaway from it. And I appreciate seeing someone else who is as like tapped in, has the same level of just being so hungry for more women's basketball and I mean, an avid consumer of women's basketball media. You reference, I think, every WBB podcast that exists out there. Yeah. Like it's incredible just what you've seen, what you have been a part of. And oh my gosh, we are just so excited to have you here joining us. We have a great crew that we've had set up, and I mean, couldn't think of a better sort of early season addition here to the Her Hoop Stats podcast.
I'm so glad the check cleared. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. For me, it's all about the growth of the game, right? We've seen this explosion in interest in the last couple of years. In particular, thank you, Caitlin Clark, for bringing that tsunami of interest. But now it's up to folks like you and I, Jamie, to make sure that the fans understand what they're watching and to appreciate some of the different nuances because, Caitlin Clark is a generational player, but she is not the only thing worth watching in the WNBA.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's something that a lot of basketball fans, and I don't just say women's basketball fans, there's a lot of people that are maybe being exposed to the WNBA for the first time because finally we have widespread coverage. And so there's so many people who are finally getting some of that exposure. And when you know basketball, when you've watched basketball, there's so much about the W to enjoy and to respect and love. And as someone who grew up primarily on women's basketball, where the default for me was women's basketball, not men's, due to my mom working in the sport, I'm seeing other people recognize, hey, there's there's some really cool aspects of this. This is a very consistently team game. This is a very
Mhm.
strategic game. It's some of what we're seeing in the NBA finals right now, right? Between the Pacers and the Thunder. Like it's a very fun style of basketball that we're getting in the
Mhm.
finals there. That's kind of day in and day out in the W.
100%. And can I say, Indiana, get it together. I cannot stress enough as a Pacific Northwest native and a Seattle Supersonics fan growing up. I just walked on Lenny Wilkins' way, for Pete's sake, going to Climate Pledge 2 weeks ago to watch the Storm and the Dream play. Please, 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 Pacers, do not let the Thunder win a title. Thank you. That's it. I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, as the sibling of Tyrese's college roommate, I'm right there with you.
There
So
we go.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
We're
So
united on this, Jamie. I love
yes,
this.
yes, big fan of the Pacers, big fan of the Halliburton family. So
Okay.
we will be able to certainly continue to talk on that topic off air. But in the meantime, let's get into sort of what I wanted to kick off your time here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast talking
Mhm.
about, which is we met last week. We talked about a whole bunch of topics that I think people are going to be really excited to hear your perspective on in the coming days. But for today, the first thing that really stood out to me was talking about some of the breakout stars of this year and some of the not even breakout stars, but some of the really kind of quiet, under the radar, but extremely impactful players that we're seeing in the W this season. There's a common
Mhm.
thread for a lot of them, and that's Athletes Unlimited. So as you mentioned, you've been covering Athletes Unlimited since its inception. There's been a whole bunch of players coming through there, and first of all, what an incredible opportunity for people to be able to play
Mhm.
domestically. There's some people want to make it kind of a competition, like an either or on Athletes Unlimited or Unrivaled, who just completed
Mhm.
their first season. But I think that it has become extremely evident that there's room in the ecosystem for many opportunities in the
Yes.
United States. But as far as development goes, we've seen some people really be able to shine and figure some things out in the 5-on-5 format. And that's something that I know you're really passionate about, is being able to see these players. The 3-on-3 is really fun. There's a lot you can develop, especially for like the extremely elite players that need to put themselves in special situations. But for
Mhm.
some of these players that come in and are fighting for their spots year after year, or maybe would be generally considered a quote unquote role player, Athletes Unlimited, I mean, it's hard to think of a much better format to develop than what you have there.
Oh, we're really fortunate. Shout out to the Valkyries and Veronica Burton, Athletes Unlimited star. Here's the deal. The thing about Athletes Unlimited, it's the 5-on-5 format, as you mentioned, Jamie, but it's also an opportunity for PT, playing time that some WNBA players just don't get in the current system. And we see a player like Burton, who just put up an amazing stat line of 14 points, 12 assists, no turnovers, and unprecedented plus 40 plus minus, something that had never been achieved in the WNBA in its 29-year history. And those are the kind of kinks that were able to be worked out by VB in Athletes Unlimited just because she got burned. She got confidence with burn, and she is just one of a plethora of examples. We see it in Washington with the Mystics, Emily Inksler, Odyssey Sims starting the season with a contract, bona fide deal from the Sparks. She dropped a 30 piece the other day. I love the opportunity that Athletes Unlimited presents. The Jonathans, John Patricoff, and Jonathan Soros, who started Athletes Unlimited, saw an opportunity for women to have the opportunity to play domestically, to not have to go overseas and play in a 5-on-5 format. And we have seen that be such a great touchstone and a great relationship. Shout out to the Vice President, Director of Basketball Operations, Megan Perry, who is very intentional in making sure that the WNBA and Athletes Unlimited has a great relationship. We always have GMs, coaches, everybody pull through the site in Nashville now. We're locked down in Nashville for the next several years. It's become a go-to destination, and it's just a beautiful relationship. And I love seeing it pay dividends to so many fantastic hoopers who may not be the star, the guy, but they are the glue folks that you need to win in the WNBA.
And for those unfamiliar with Athletes Unlimited, one of the really unique aspects of it is that you're redrafting teams week by week. And
Mhm.
so for most of these players, you're probably not going to play with every single person on the full Athletes Unlimited roster, but my gosh, you're going to be playing with probably over half of them when all is said and done. And so you get to be a teammate of, 15, 20 plus more people
Mhm.
that otherwise you wouldn't have this experience with. It means that you're in a different role from week to week, from game to game. And then you
Mhm.
also have this really unique point system where you get individual points as well as your team points for succeeding as a group, but then your individual statistics. So I think that that is one of those things where it starts to catch people's eye a little bit, where maybe there's these players that are really consistent but aren't putting up like a jaw-dropping amount of points every night, or
Mhm.
maybe they're out there and just not getting as much name recognition, but then they go out to Athletes Unlimited and you've had them really just be able to shine because they're doing what they do consistently, and they're getting attention for that. And one of the people that I think of in that regard is this past year's winner in Maddie Siegrist, who, I mean, absolutely blasted the record books for individual points scored in a
Yeah.
year. And that was coming off of a huge breakout season for the Dallas Wings. And now we see, okay, Dallas, as I have said on many an episode, they have a lot of things they're figuring out, and they've had a lot of levels of inconsistency, from Paige being out to now losing both of your centers to Eurobasket in Louisa
Mhm.
Gaiselsuder and Tierra McCowan. But when you have some level of consistency within your organization, which they have very little because they are such a new roster. But Maddie Seegers, man, she comes in and she's so unassuming. Like
Mhm.
she does not command the court as far as like the way that Arike has that gravity and that presence, but she takes every opportunity that is out there and really seems to make the most of it, and that's just so
Mhm.
valuable for a team that has needed some level of consistency, has needed that sort of anchor for them. And I feel like that's something that Maddie definitely has developed in her time with AU. Like, she learned, I'm gonna fit into whatever box you have for me.
100%. What I love most about Athletes Unlimited is the point system, because it rewards great basketball and it penalizes bad basketball. You turn the basketball over, you get dinged. You don't make a free throw, you lose points, but you get rewarded if you've got the steal and the finish, which is why players like Maddie succeeded, Odyssey. Of course, they had to redo the rules in AU after Alicia Gray pulled through and shattered every record 2 seasons ago. They got to tweak things after she pulled through. But yeah, I love that. So that's one aspect. And then the other, and I think this speaks to your point about Maddie, is the leadership. Because when you are atop that leaderboard, the top 4 spots are named captains, and there are no coaches in AU. We have facilitators. Coach Kelly, who just got a win for Indiana, one of our AU facilitators this past season. So the facilitators are there to kind of help manage, but it's up to the captains to select and draft their players, folks that they want to play with. And by doing that, they're using a muscle. And I'll use Maddie as an example, that they normally don't have to use, that probably Maddie hasn't used since she was at Villanova, right?
Mm.
When she led the nation in scoring, I'm sure she was considered a leader on that team, but hasn't had to wear that hat with Dallas, but now can and do so more confidently because of her experience as a captain at AU. And then I look at the strength of the New York Liberty, undefeated alongside the Minnesota Lynx. And two AU standouts on that roster, Izzy Harrison and Tosh Cloud. Cloud was one of the originating founding players for Athletes Unlimited. And she is a leader to the nth degree. And for my money, is the big reason why New York hasn't had any sort of hangover. She won't let them. She will not let them rest on their laurels. It's all about chasing the chip, going back to back, and for Tosh getting her second WNBA title. And finally, an all-star nod. Can we just go ahead and check that box? It's stunning
Right.
that young woman has not had an all-star nod yet.
I mean, as soon as you say that, it's just like it blows my mind because it just isn't even like in my sphere as a
Mm,
possibility that like Tosh hasn't been an all-star, but especially
yep,
you talk about the leadership, like this is someone that you covered in AU, this is someone that you covered in Phoenix,
yep.
and it just feels like the very rarely do you have a scenario where it feels like everyone gets what they wanted, especially in the WNBA, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like for Tosh, like it's hard to imagine a much better situation there where like
Mhm.
my heart still hurts for the fact that she didn't feel that she was done right in the way that things ended with the Mercury. I know this is a business, but
Hey,
it
listen, a
just
lot of us felt that way. Brittany
yeah,
Griner was told the exact same thing I was. We're going in a different direction. And
yeah,
Todd done even a little dirtier to your point. For me, when she came to the Valley and was not wearing jersey number 9, I'm like, "Wait, what? Uh, uh, that's her brand. She is Cloud 9." What? And then behind the scenes, oh, well, Sophie has some sort of, special deal with that number. I was like, oh, okay. And then she goes to Indiana, is wearing number 8. I'm like, well, clearly it wasn't that special. Like, what? So, and then, Tosh was on social media and she depicted exactly what went down. So I don't need to speak for her, but to see her land with the Liberty and put that team in a position to repeat, it just warms my heart. It's just kind of like, okay, karma is paying attention. All right, good job. I love it. I love to see it because she is just one of not only the best basketball players I've ever had the pleasure of calling games for, but just one of the best human beings. She just gets it. And I just love to see her thrive.
yeah. That's I mean, I had the opportunity to go down and see a night of Unrivaled when I was in Florida, and she was at the press conference post game, and I wasn't there like in a super like official coverage capacity. I was there with her
Mhm.
hoop to kind of get the lay of the land, but
Yep.
I didn't have like a story I was pursuing. But the only person that I asked the question was Tosh, and I mean, just such a great answer, like so thoughtful. I mean, she's sitting there, she's making eye contact with you, like as someone who's
Mhm.
done this for a little while, like it's funny how those quote unquote small things can be such a big thing, but just
Yep.
it seemed like she had such a respect and appreciation for everyone who was a part of it there. And I'm sure was the same with Unrivaled, or excuse me, with Athletes Unlimited as with
Mhm.
Unrivaled. And then
Yep.
you get out there and she says, I've always had this connection with New York. I've always felt this really big kinship with the fan base. And it's weird how sometimes when you end up in a spot that appreciates you and sees you for who you are and what you're capable of, all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're able to flourish in a way that maybe no one would have anticipated. And I feel like that's really what we're seeing with Tosh because she's been an incredible player. I frankly didn't know she had this level to her because she hasn't really had the opportunity to show it, but to go
Oh,
onto
she showed us in Athletes Unlimited.
that's the thing.
She
You go
showed
onto
us
the
in
Stacks
AU.
New York roster, and now she's saying, "Hey, look, I'm gonna make everyone else better around me.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be great." Like it just is. It's incredible. Like I have a hard time thinking of anyone else that has risen to the occasion quite as much as she had. Not just in the W, just like point blank. Period.
100%. And I invite everybody to go and find it on YouTube. The playoff game between the Mystics at the Liberty just a few years ago, where Tosh went off. She was on one and was vibing with the fan base. And for me, that's when the seed was planted. I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, if things go left in Washington, boy, that Liberty fan base would be all over cloud. And they are. And what I love about that for Sabrina Ionescu is she doesn't have to wear being the face,
Yes.
right? She just gets to breathe, do her thing. She knows Tosh is going to distribute the basketball. And it gets me to another point that I've noticed in the WNBA in particular this season. The teams that have had the most success consistently are the teams that have multiple options to run the show, right? Multiple point guards. I look at the Minnesota Lynx. When you have Courtney Williams and Natisha Heidemann, there's no drop off. You've got two starting point guards. Same goes for New York with Sabrina and Tosh. You have that opportunity once Caitlin comes back in Indiana as well. I don't know what their roster is going to look like. I think Ari McDonald is making enough noise to maybe get some shine after the emergency contract situation.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, but I see the teams that, at the top of the table, Seattle with Erica Wheeler and Skylar Diggins. That to me, that's the separator now because you already have to have that special 4 or 5, right? But now the next level up is floor generals constantly on the floor running things.
It's so funny because it's something that I've noted in college a lot is
Mhm.
something very similar where you have programs that really consistently run like a two-point guard system, which is not exactly what you're talking about, but like I think
Mhm.
of Baylor has
Yeah.
done that for a long time, even before
Notre
Kelly
Dame.
Cullen when Kim was there.
Yep.
Yes, Notre Dame, absolutely, where you have you can't exactly game plan for what they're doing. And in the W, I think that part of it has been that point guard is such a heavy position where
Mhm.
a lot of time it's been, well, we have our point guard and we're going to ride with them. We are going to have it be primarily this one person's job because there's so much more to it than people realize. It's not just distributing the ball, it's knowing every single position on the floor for
Yep.
every play. It's being able to be consistent. It's knowing your teammates' preferences of where they're getting the ball on the floor, where the ball
Mhm.
is being passed, like where their shooting pocket is. So you're getting the ball right there. It's something I've noted that like Paige Beckers was so good at in college, where
Oh,
she knew her teammates' shooting pocket so well. And that's what I'm excited to see when she's coming back is that she hadn't quite had the time to get that read on her teammates yet, but you can see the gears starting to turn. You can see that connection forming. But now the W, there's been this influx of talent and this level of versatility where you don't just have like maybe 10 or 11
mm-mm.
WNBA level point guards because that's been the case in the past where you have shooting guards and forwards playing point guard. Now you have
Yep.
people who can actually play point. And I mean Natisha Heidemann is like one of the top examples because I tell you what, I was ready to be heartbroken as a Lynx fan if she decided to go sign somewhere else because I said she could go be a starting point guard almost anywhere in
Mhm.
the league.
100%.
And she loves what's in Minnesota. She knows that they recognize what she brings to the table. And another example of when you're somewhere that they recognize your value and what your strengths are and what you can bring, you rise to that occasion. It took her a little time to get her footing last year, but
Mhm.
this year, smooth start. Like
Yep.
Natisha has just been on such a tear, and I think it's because she recognizes that, hey, Cheryl, my teammates, Minnesota, they see me, they get me, they know what I'm capable of, and maybe they think I'm capable of even more than I thought that
Mhm.
I was, and all of a sudden now she's doing that and more.
Oh, 100%. And that is one of the biggest pieces that new fans to the WNBA need to understand. Sometimes it's not talent, it's fit. Does the player fit what the organization is about and what they want to do versus just skill set? Because I look at a team like the Valkyries and I'm like, you have Monique Billings. When you win, Monique Billings is on the floor a lot. And when you lose, she is not. So for me, Why isn't she in the starting lineup? Like, let's just Beck Allen, Chicago. Why isn't she in the starting lineup? Like this, some of this stuff is not rocket science, but they're trying to. These are new experiences with these franchises, with these coaches, right? So Monique has to prove, hey, I can be a starter. I haven't been consistently, but this is all new here in Golden State. Let's just look at the numbers. When I'm on the floor, things go well. When I'm not so much. And the same goes for Beck Allen. And I get, maybe Tyler wants to bring offense off the bench, but you need offense, period. So why don't you start with your best offensive options and then see how it shakes out?
Yeah, I feel like there's something where these players that have like a high level of versatility, which are both of the ones you're talking about here in Monique Billings and Beck
Mhm.
Allen, both of them can come in for the players at pretty much the 2 through 5, and
Mhm.
depending on the lineup, sometimes they can sub in for the
Yeah.
1 and just slide a different player over there. And so our first player off the bench can be coming in for anyone. And so I feel like it just becomes so easy to say, well, they're number 1 off the bench. But
Yeah.
to your point, especially for Chicago, when you really need to be able to get off to a strong start. Like you're digging yourself such a hole to begin
Mhm.
with. And that versatility in your starting lineup would mean that you're able to adjust a lot better on the fly as opposed to, all right, Beck, rough start, get on in
Go fix it.
there. You
Yeah.
know, and she's someone who I continue to feel is a little bit underrated and,
Oh,
has had
100%.
some
100%.
inconsistency, but that's, I mean, just the roster as a whole right now in Chicago, you're going to see a lot of inconsistency because there's some gaps they're trying to fill. You're not always going to be in a position to succeed at a high level. So
Right.
I just feel like someone like that is exactly the experience and the level of reliability that
Yeah.
a starting lineup can use. And same with Monique Billings. I mean, we mentioned Odyssey Sims right off the top. Monique Billings, Odyssey Sims, a couple of players who have been, I mean, the term I always use is mercenaries, where
Yeah.
they are always brought in on short-term contracts. And then a lot of the time, by the end of the season, they're getting a rest of season contract because they have the experience, they have the will to win, they have the ability to adapt and to fit into the program that is looking for them. But it's always been kind of wild to me that they're not starting out the season on a roster. And so to see Monique and
Mhm.
have them kind of building around her and still figuring out how to implement her best, but then Odyssey in LA, like you said, 30-piece start off. Like you have a new head coach. What do you need? You need veteran presence, especially when you have a lot of very young pieces. And that to me has been major for LA, where you have a lot of young players, but you
Mhm.
got Odyssey Sims holding it down, who has seen a little bit of everything in
Yeah.
this league, and she's gonna push him. Like she is gonna push her team, she's gonna push her teammates, she's gonna push the coaching staff because she's like, I don't do this losing thing. I don't do this like
I'm not built
training
for that.
wheels.
Yep.
Like there's no retool, there's no rebuild. Like there is the now,
Yeah.
and that is like a mindset that I think everyone needs to have a little bit of.
Yeah, Los Angeles can get real sexy. Once Cameron Brink comes back and demonstrates that she's healthy, you have 2 lefty lethal weapons in the front court in Odyssey Sims and Kelsey Plum. What a nightmare to game plan against.
Uh, them, and then I mean, Rakia Jackson is just like the
Yes.
versatility is absurd,
Yep.
especially as you say, you get Cam Brink back.
Mhm. Well,
I don't know.
people can
Oh,
load up on Rakia now because they're not worried about Cam. Once Cam comes back, Azure Stevens' numbers are gonna go up.
oh, and
Dearica
her
Hamby's
numbers
numbers
are
are gonna go
already.
up. Yes, yes. Can we just go ahead and start the 6th player of the year or most improved, whatever it is, for Azure Stevens? Her numbers this season are off the charts awesome.
Oh my god. I mean, there's been so many I will say, like, we talked about Tosh Cloud, we talked about Natisha Heidemann. There's been a
Mhm.
number of players that I feel like have ended up in such a great situation for them, and it
Yeah.
shows the intentionality of the roster building this year and
Mhm.
the focus on being ready for like the next phase of the
Yes.
W, where instead of for years and years it was kind of the same head coaches recycled year after year. Like someone
Yeah.
would leave one place and get hired at another. And, for some that's great. Like that it's just a fit thing. But at a certain point, it's like you need some fresh blood. And so you bring in new coaches, you bring in new GMs, you have this year where anyone that's not on a rookie scale is on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And they made some major home runs. Like Azure has been I love a tall like player with guard skills. Like I won't call her a
Mhm.
guard, but like she's got a lot of the guard bag to her.
Yeah.
And I just love to see her showing the inside and outside of that, where she's hitting the boards, she's hitting the threes. Like I have
Listen,
a deep
everybody's
respect
shooting
for
threes.
that.
Brittany
Right.
Griner's first basket of the season was a three. Like, what? And that was a skill. Credit to assistant coach Joyner in Phoenix. He worked really hard with Brittany Griner to extend her range. And credit to BG herself coming out of Baylor. She wasn't a very good free throw shooter. Now
Mhm.
she's very reliable at the free throw line, which led the coaching staff at Phoenix to say, hey, if she can shoot free throws that well, we can get her beyond the 3-point arc. And now we're seeing BG hitting career high numbers from three. Back to your point about positionless basketball and all of the things, it just makes everything exciting. And again, back to our conversation on fit. BG in Atlanta is a nice fit. Bree Jones in Atlanta is a nice fit. And with Jordan Canada healthy, again, you've got a 2-point guard situation, just
Mhm.
something to keep an eye on. Even though PG Rye said she didn't want to be a point guard, she held it down. So now she's
Yep.
got that in her bag. And again, gives Atlanta that versatility moving forward.
Absolutely. I want to make sure we hit on another player before we kind of wrap this up here,
Sure.
and that is Emily Engstler.
Oh,
We talked about
M.
her in our conversation last week. We talked a little bit before we started recording, but I wanted to save. We touched on her before we started recording, and I kind of backed away from it because I know that you are so excited about her. I know you're so passionate about her, and so I was like, oh, we got to save this energy. Like we'll keep this fresh because I mean, I've talked about underrated players. For someone who has had to scratch and claw for her roster spot, for someone
Mhm.
who has been around through some different kind of regimes in Washington, and
Yeah.
now to be in a situation where it's a lot of youth, it's a lot of new faces,
Mhm.
and it was not a lot of expectations for
Yeah.
this season. But to come in and to be again prepared for whatever and anything that is asked of her, to be alongside this sort of range of
Mhm.
some really great experienced veterans that have been maybe sort of in the shadows, maybe not as highlighted as at times they
Mhm.
should be, and then these rookies that don't have the experience but have shown that they have the ability. And then kind of right in the middle is like an Emily Engstler, where she's been around for a little while but hasn't gotten a ton of run, hasn't definitely has not shown all she's capable of doing, but every time she comes in the game, she is a spark. She is doing the right thing. She just is
Mhm.
like an engine that keeps everything going. And I know that you said you're like, saw it at AU, not surprised by it, but I feel like she's one of those that very under the radar has raised the ability of the Mystics so much. And that's why the Mystics, I think, at this point have caught a lot of people by surprise and will continue to do so, because you talk about a cohesive team and
Mhm.
the sum of its parts being greater than each individual. Like that's the Mystics.
Oh, 100%. I love to see this for M. She has demonstrated at Athletes Unlimited that she belongs in the WNBA, point blank, bottom line. Again, it was about where can she fit? Washington has recognized now that she has the ability and quickness to play the three.
Hmm.
and moved her out a little bit because what Washington has in an embarrassment of riches is fours and fives. And so to get her playing time because she does things that nobody likes doing, rebounding and defending, right? Not sexy, doesn't get the headlines, but M can also shoot that thing. So when she gets an opportunity, she's not going to take a shot away from somebody else. She's not going to take it away from Austin. She's not going to take it away from Edwards. But if a rebound putback opportunity is there, she's going to connect. If she is open on the wing, she can shoot the midi. She can shoot the three. Like she has the ability. So I think it just gives the Mystics a little bit more option wise. And I think that is so special because what M is going to do for you every single day is outwork the opposition. And that makes her worth her weight in gold.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I feel like that's kind of the Mystics credo right now is
Hmm.
we're just gonna try to outwork you.
Yeah.
And I
And
mentioned this
and
last week.
who's the head of that snake? One of the hardest working individuals in the W, Brittany Sykes. Can we please put Sykes into the MVP conversation? She's there. When
Mhm.
you are at the top of the leaderboard when it comes to scoring the basketball in the WNBA, you're getting everybody's attention. And you know
Mhm.
you're at the top of the scout. And she is still driving and hitting free throws, getting and one opportunities, finding her teammates, making sure that the paint is open for her crazily talented fours and fives. So it's been really fun to see. I think Washington, even when that team loses, it's exciting. And
Yes.
that is kind of awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a blast to watch, and I mean, just the leadership between her and Steph Dolson, like to be
Mhm.
able to bring everyone together, win or loss,
Yep.
and making sure that like they're uplifting these rookies, they're encouraging them, and the other young players, you know, they're very young core, they're supporting them but
Yeah.
pushing them, like not coddling, not like oh that's good enough because you're
Mhm.
young. It's like if I know you can do better, I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you, but I'm also going to tell you that what you're doing now is great. And both of those things can be true. And people don't want both of those things to be true. Like, you don't
Right.
have to be performing at your peak, but you can be doing great things. And I think that's what we're seeing there. And that's why, as the season goes on, they get healthier. Like, we know Shakira Austin is not fully healthy right now.
Right.
We know that you have a couple of rookies that are coming off of a whole lot of games coming into this season. And so I think they've like very sneakily become my secondary team that I'm like, yes, I watch the Lynx, I'm a fan of the Lynx, but I
Right.
don't miss a Mystics game
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
don't want to miss that development.
Yeah, same. I grew up with the Seattle Storm. That is my hometown team. Love those guys. Love what's going on. But yeah, anytime I can watch Sonia and Kiki, because I got to watch, because right now they're battling for Rookie of the Year. So
Right.
on the same roster, who had that on their bingo card when the season started?
Oh my gosh, they're incredible. Like I had this conversation last week, so I won't totally rehash it. But the fact that like they had a very similar role on their team
Hmm.
in college where neither of them were the center, the focal point, but both of
Right.
them showed how valuable they are and how dangerous they are. Now they come into the league together alongside each other and they get to build each other up, push each other, but like I feel like it's hard to pick out anyone else in the
Hmm.
league period, let alone in this rookie class that would understand where each of them are coming from more than the other. And so
Right.
I think that's why we're seeing this like really incredible level of like cohesion and just camaraderie on that roster, which as someone who's been around like on the inside of teams, it's
Hmm.
just amazing to see that develop in a lot of places right now.
Oh, 100%. And that just speaks to the level of college talent that is hitting the WNBA. I'm old enough to remember Skylar Diggins struggled when she got to the league. Kelsey Plum struggled when she got to the league. Like that just doesn't happen anymore. These rookies are raring and ready to go from the jump. And it creates Another situation that I'll just touch on real quickly, we can deep dive later on, is we need expanded roster spots. I think we need more roster spots more than we need more teams because these rookies are ready to go. We've seen the injuries, we've seen what Eurobasket does. We need more roster spots. This is ridiculous always signing these emergency contracts every other week because you don't have enough players to suit up for a game or do practice. Expand the rosters and then expand the league. The talent that is coming in from college is where it needs to be. It doesn't need to be developed as much as it used to in the past. So, with that, expand the roster spots. This is not rocket science.
Yeah, the emergency is more the default at this point,
Yeah.
and that's when it tells you that something's wrong.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, much like the rookies, you have come into this thing raring to go, hit the ground running. So thank you, Cindy, for joining us today, for joining us weekly. I could sit here for another hour, I think, and hit on every other thing we talked about last week, but we will save some of that for another day. But man,
Okay.
what
Yeah.
an awesome.
Let's tease. Let's tease.
Yes.
Since I don't have a typical WNBA job this season, other than her hoop stats podcasting, I am taking a WNBA tour to
Yes.
facilities that I have not been to. I was at opening night for the regular season for the Golden State Valkyries. Valhalla is a vibe. Well done, Golden State. Can no notes, chef's kiss. Absolutely love the experience. First trip to Climate Pledge because that got rejiggered while I was working with the Mercury, and I hadn't had a chance to have 10 toes down. So that was also an elite experience. I'm going to Vancouver for the Canada game in August. My next stop will be in Dallas to see the Fever and the Wings play. And then I'm going to try to squeeze in that Candace Parker retirement jersey deal in Los Angeles. Now, I know she's going to have two, so I got two options because there's going to be one in Chicago. But I really want to see CP3 honored. And around there, I'm going to try to get out to Washington, D.C. as well because, Jamie, you know I'm on board with the Mystics, so I want to see them in person as well.
Absolutely. Well, there's really not a bad choice as far as games go this year. So
No.
I'm super excited to be able to get some of your perspective from seeing it live, seeing the environments. I know that there's so much new happening, as you said, and so really excited to hear about all your experiences there. Especially, I understand what it's like going from covering a team really closely and then
Mhm.
broadening a little bit, and
Yep.
there's a lot of really cool perspective you can bring from it, and obviously so many of these players, these programs so well. So what we've gotten, if today is any indication, we are in for such a treat the rest of the season. So Cindy, thank you so much. Where can people find you online to follow along with your WNBA road trip in between our
Yeah.
episodes?
Just on the socials, Cindy Brunson AZ on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram. So yeah, a little bit on X, not as much, just because that leadership is, whoo, goodness. But yeah, you guys know, Cindy Brunson AZ.
All right, folks. And I am Jamie Steyer Johnson at JSteyz, JSTEYZ on all social media platforms. Make sure that you are subscribed to our podcast. We are coming out every day during the week with the rest of our awesome rotating cast of characters. As you all well know, we'll be here every day the rest of the week and going forward. Thank you so much, guys. I'm Jamie, and this has been Cindy Brunson.